Zhu Hai looked at the already uprooted serpent fruit tree, his heart filled with rage. It bore fruit once every 3 years, and now it had been dug up. Replanting it was obviously impossible. Those two would definitely notice something was amiss. Moreover, Zhu Hai's knowledge was limited to the serpent fruit itself. He knew little about the tree and wasn't sure if it could survive being replanted. Even I know to leave a bit of leeway when hunting. You humans uprooting the tree and destroying the roots deserve death. Zhu Hai was furious but helpless. At this moment, the commotion in the distance gradually subsided, and the hissing of a large snake could be heard, indicating that the battle had ended. Zhu Hai's mind raced, and he quickly made a decision. He opened his mouth wide, bit down on one end of the serpent fruit tree, and swallowed it whole. The serpent fruit tree wasn't very large, about 3 meters tall, with a slender trunk. It was more like a shrub than a tree. Once inside, the tree stretched Zhu Hai's body straight, making him look like a bamboo pole. He had expected it to be quickly digested, but it remained intact, which surprised him. He had eaten plants before: watermelons, wild fruits, grasses, even stones, and no matter what entered his body, it would immediately show signs of corrosion and digestion. The herb gatherer had been half digested in just a few breaths, but this tree remained completely undamaged. Only the edges of the leaves were shrinking at an extremely slow pace. Forget it, time to get out of here. Zhu Hai immediately slipped away. The undigested tree made him stiff and awkward to move. Fortunately, once he entered the pool, he could stretch and contract like a leech, allowing him to move quickly. The black gold scales at the tip of his tail flicked rapidly, increasing his speed even more. That herb gatherer was definitely instigated by someone, probably one of those two, wanting to monopolize the serpent tree. Zhu Hai wasn't stupid. A bit of analysis revealed the cause and effect, but he couldn't be bothered to care. He had swallowed the serpent fruit tree. Now he just needed to leave and find a place to digest it, avoiding detection. Suddenly, Zhu Hai froze. A massive surge of energy erupted within him, an indescribable force crashing into his meridians like a wild ox, causing excruciating pain. What's happening? Zhu Hai was shocked. In his panic, Zhu Hai found a snake hole and burrowed in. The snake hole wasn't large, but Zhu Hai kept digging deeper with his tail, making it even deeper than his last hibernation hole. This is unbearable. Zhu Hai quickly looked inside his body and saw that the serpent fruit tree had unknowingly digested all its leaves and part of its bark. These barks had transformed into boundless, violent energy rampaging through his body, threatening to shatter his bones. Unable to endure it, Zhu Hai spat out a mouthful of blood. It wasn't that the serpent fruit tree was poisonous. The energy was simply too overwhelming for him to handle. In fact, the serpent fruit tree was a top-grade spiritual item, suitable for consumption only in the late-key refining stage. And even then, it needed to be refined into a pill to remove impurities. Swallowing it raw would cause the violent energy to immediately rupture one's meridians, potentially leading to an explosive death. Zhu Hai made a quick decision and spat out the serpent fruit tree. Even after spitting it out, Zhu Hai was still in immense pain, with several streams of violent energy rampaging through his meridians. At this moment, the demon god cauldron suddenly absorbed all the violent energy, calming Zhu Hai down. That was terrifying. This serpent fruit tree is poisonous. Zhu Hai gasped for breath, still shaken. No wonder the serpent fruit tree had existed for so many years, without any demonic beasts gnawing on its bark or branches. It was indeed dangerous. He had sensed it too, but in his desperation, he had no other choice but to try. Clearly, the mastermind was after the tree, with the serpent fruits being a secondary objective. At this moment, Zhu Hai noticed something astonishing. The spiritual key mist inside the demon god cauldron had unknowingly expanded from 80% to 90%. The seventh scale on his tail had also completed its transformation. Zhu Hai was stunned. When did this happen? Just now. Meanwhile, above ground, two streaks of light flew rapidly and landed where the serpent fruit tree had originally been. These two were Zhao Wenxiu and Sang Xiu, who had just dealt with the old Snake King. They hadn't even used their full strength against the aged Snake King, relying on long-range attacks and strategic retreats to eventually kill it. However, before they could inspect the corpse, they discovered that the serpent fruit tree was gone. Standing on the slope, they looked at the large pit and the shovel marks on the ground, their expressions uncertain. Clearly, someone had taken advantage of their battle with the old snake, keen to dig up the serpent fruit tree. Sang Xiu gritted her teeth. Damn it, who did this? Zhao Wenxiu glanced at her and calmly said, Senior sister, if you needed the serpent tree, you could have just said so. Why do this behind my back? Sang Xiu was taken aback and glared at Zhao Wenxiu. What do you mean? Suspecting me? Ridiculous, I haven't even suspected you yet. Junior brother Zhao, are you feeling guilty and trying to shift the blame? Zhu Hai, deep underground, heard their conversation clearly. He didn't know who had done it. He was unfamiliar with the female cultivator, but he had witnessed Zhao Wenxiu's cunning firsthand and leaned towards suspecting him. Zhao Wenxiu examined the ground for a while and found several footprints. He said solemnly, Senior sister, this isn't the place to talk. Call your friend out and I'll give you the serpent tree. I only want one. Serpent fruit, we can discuss the rest later. Sang Xiu angrily retorted, ridiculous. I have no such friend. If it wasn't you, then the old Snake King's commotion must have attracted other experts. Other experts? Zhao Wenxiu squinted his eyes and said coldly, do you take me for a 3-year-old? Trying to fool me with such an excuse? Sang Xiu stared directly at him, and Zhao Wenxiu stared back. Why aren't they fighting yet? Hurry up and fight. Zhu Hai was getting anxious. He was tired of their bickering and wanted them to get to the part where they both got injured. Both of them reached for their storage bags simultaneously but then stopped, staring at each other without saying a word. Hurry up. Start fighting. Zhu Hai cheered them on in his mind, excited beyond measure. He loved watching such scenes, where both sides ended up worse off. At this moment, Zhao Wenxiu suddenly sighed, released his grip and said, let's leave it to Master to decide. He took out a communication jade talisman and tossed it into the air, letting it fly towards the horizon. During this process, Sang Xiu kept a close eye on him, ready to activate her copper bell at any moment. But in the end, she didn't make a move. Snap! The communication jade talisman hadn't flown far before a large hand grabbed it. A figure appeared in the distance, holding the talisman, walking on water, and quickly approached, arriving in just a few breaths. This person looked middle-aged, wearing a green python robe, with a stern face and a mustache, resembling a scholarly middle-aged man. Senior brother. Greetings, senior brother. The two were initially surprised but quickly bowed respectfully. They had no choice but to be respectful. This person was their strongest senior brother, Mu Yang. 8 years ago, Mu Yang had already broken through to the mid-key refining stage, reportedly reaching the 6th level of key refining, 3 levels higher than them. Both were secretly alarmed. Why was Mu Yang here? Mu Yang landed in front of them, seemingly aware of their confusion, and said calmly, "Master knew your plans and sent me to protect you in secret. I already know what happened." Upon hearing this, the two quickly bowed and thanked him. Zhu Hai, on the other hand, was startled. Thinking back on his recent experiences, Zhu Hai felt a chill down his spine. How insidious! Having someone secretly protect them. Luckily, I didn't act rashly or I'd be dead by now. Zhu Hai felt fortunate. Fighting humans was entirely different from fighting demonic beasts. You never knew what tricks humans had up their sleeves. Zhao Wenxiu hesitated for a moment, unwilling to give up, and said, "Senior brother, what about the serpent tree? It wasn't me who dug it up. Someone else did," Mu Yang said calmly. What? Zhao Wenxiu's eyes widened. That person was very cunning, sending a mortal to dig up the tree. Otherwise, I could have tracked them through their spiritual key, but with a mortal, it's impossible to track, only through footprints. Mu Yang shook his head and said slowly, "But unfortunately, the footprints are gone too." Everyone could see that the footprints disappeared 5 meters away from the serpent tree. Mu Yang stared at the ground, silent for a moment, then closed his eyes and spread his divine sense. Zhu Hai quickly retracted his divine sense and remained motionless deep underground. He knew the other party's divine sense couldn't reach him, and as long as he didn't release his own divine sense, he wouldn't be discovered. Just then, the 3 serpent fruits on the serpent fruit tree beside Zhu Hai suddenly turned a deep black, emitting a rich fragrance that seeped through the soil. The serpent fruits had ripened. The scent of the ripened serpent fruits was so strong that it couldn't be concealed, even permeating through the soil. Effing hell! Zhu Hai nearly cursed out loud.